Welcome to the Kate Molland channel. My podcast is now in progress. Let's tune in. Well, Jason, welcome to 2023, our first podcast of the year. So last time we spoke, we talked about doing dry January, which is where people abstain from alcohol for the entire month of January. Did you decide to participate?
As a matter of fact, I did. I didn't officially sign up for that, but because we talked about it, it was just one of those things where I said, well, why not? And then, again, it would help me understand my relationship with alcohol because I do enjoy social drinking, as we talked about before. And on occasion, I do enjoy solitary drinking, where I would drink, maybe a glass of wine with a good meal that I made at home, or if I'm doing some writing and I want to sip on one of the miniature bottles. You ever see those bottles of wine you get like 4 to a pack?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd get one of those, maybe for $5.99.
Yeah.
Some Merlot of some sort, and then I'd sip on one of those little miniature bottles.
Okay.
And that would be like solitary, and then solitary drinking. Yeah, so as of this point, yes, I am participating, and I have not had a drop of alcohol since we talked about this back in December. What about you? Have you had any alcohol?
So, no, I haven't. When we spoke about dry January, I was on the fence, but I decided, why not? Like, we talked about it. It wasn't something I think I would have done. It's not something I discussed really with my friends in December, but I decided to give it a go. And I actually went to a birthday dinner last night, and I did some recon before dinner. I looked at the restaurant's menu to see if they had any, mixology that was non-alcoholic. I didn't see anything, so I picked up a bottle of non-alcoholic wine and took it to the dinner with me.
Was there a cork fee for that or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There was
right.
corkage.
Now, were there others participating in the dry January with you, or they were just viewing you as a okay, what is she doing?
I got a lot of glares and people looking at the bottle, but the people sitting around me actually were doing dry January, but they fell off the wagon either the night before or that night when they got to the restaurant. So but they were pretty impressed that I was actually honoring it when it's so easy not to.
Exactly. Well, we still got a ways to go.
Yes.
Are you feeling any pressure?
No, because I found a substitute, I'm not feeling pressure.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't feel any pressure at all, and I forgot about the substitute. I wouldn't even think about the substitute. I mean, but I just don't feel anything. I guess where I'm at right now is, I'm writing so much stuff right now that I guess I'm lost in the writing world, and I don't even feel hungry. And sometimes I forget to even drink water. It's like I'm so into that zone. But so far so good. And I can say that my son signed on, and I didn't ask him to, and his girlfriend signed on, which I thought was kind of cool. So I think it is a good thing to kind of know your limits and to kind of have a better idea and a better sense of self to know what your relationship is with wine. Because if you can figure it out with wine, you can probably say, all right, now I think I got a handle on wine.
Okay, it seems like we're both in a really good spot for dry January. But what about someone who is still undecided and doesn't know how to start the new year? As a coach, do you have a recommendation?
Yes. My first recommendation would be to stay dry. Now, we talked about dry January, but we're going through a wet season right now. So I would say stay dry. There's a lot of water out there. I see a lot of cars getting stuck in floods. And, since you are a DIY coach when it comes to home improvement and repairs around the house and things like that, what do you say to someone who has puddles all around the house or leaks and things like that? Well, let's begin with leaks because that seems to be a common problem. And I would like to begin by talking about leaks in mobile home parks.
Okay.
Because I do have friends that have mobile homes. And that's all I hear. Even when I visit them, I see buckets everywhere. You're walking in and you see leaks in the living room.
Oh,
what would you say to them?
That is so tough. Depending on where the leak is, sadly, when you see a leak, it doesn't mean that the roof is compromised directly above it because there's things like gravity and how wood pulls water from one place to another. You can spend a lot of time trying to look at your roof and not even really know what you're looking at. So some people may need to consult somebody. And to bring a roofer out in the rain is the worst time to bring a roofer out because it's a premium. For me, I'm confident enough that I would go up on the ladder and look around and try to see if there's vulnerabilities in the metal roof.
Let's pretend that I'm the owner of the mobile home. You come into my home, and I'm saying to you, Kate, you know about this stuff. I got a leak there, and a leak there, and a leak there. So what should I do? Do I take one look at each leak one at a time, or do I just keep bringing in the buckets and emptying the water? What would be the first thing you would do to help me out?
I would probably get on a ladder and go look at the roof if as long as it wasn't raining at the time.
Okay.
If it's still raining, all you can do is triage. So, buckets, towels, keeping the floor dry, protecting your walls, protecting your furniture, things like that. If it's not raining, I'd hop up on the ladder and I would go look to see if there are vulnerabilities in the metal roof.
Now what do you mean by vulnerabilities? Can you break that down?
Yeah, I can. So a really good, like an easy one to spot is seams. Is there a seam in your roof that looks like water is penetrating? Maybe there is a scratch on your roof that broke the paint, and so now you're getting rust in the scratch.
Let me change that to what are the most common causes of leaky roofs during the rainy season, in your opinion?
I would say a bad seam or a seam that's no longer protected. So when you have two pieces of a metal roof that come together, you want to be able to glue and screw that down, and you want to make it so that water cannot penetrate that seam and get under the roof. So, and sometimes a lot of those seams, it's just time has worn. So you have old caulking that's no longer valuable because the sun dries it out and it only can last so long. So I would start with seams on the roof.
And what would you look for? Let's say you got the ladder, you're going up on the roof. What would you look for? I mean, of course, you'd go to the general area where the leak is.
Yeah, I would start at the where I see the leak. But I know in the back of my brain that may not necessarily be exactly where the leak is because of how water travels through wood and through drywall.
Right, but we're talking about the most common. So you're saying that it would be between the seams.
I would find a seam that's in the area that's close. I would also look for scratching on the metal roof, rust, corrosion, because corrosion can lead to pinholes, and those pinholes will just bring the water in.
I see. All right, so now what would be the most common thing you would see visibly to tell you that it is definitely a seam problem?
Oh, gosh. For the proximity of the seam, and if you can see dirt in it, for me, that's a sign because that means the water is pulling with the dirt, but the dirt's not going through the seam, just the water. So that would be a red flag for me.
Then if you see that, what is the first step to fixing it? Now you established that it is definitely a seam.
Okay.
You've identified all of the obvious signs of a seam problem. I recognize this. So what would be your first step? Would this be a DIY or is this time for a professional?
You can DIY it. I have in the past. There's some steps though, because you have to clean the seam. So wherever you think the water is penetrating, you have to clean away the dirt in order for the sealant to adhere. And if you can't reach or you don't feel comfortable going on the roof, that's when you would bring in a professional. Or maybe you're concerned about, if I go on the roof, am I going to create more damage? Bring in a professional. If it's going to keep raining, you may just have to tarp the roof and wait for a good dry spell before you can even inspect it or attempt to repair it.
Now, let me ask you this. When you hire a professional, do you let the neighbors know? Because my son hired a professional recently to work on a roof, and the neighbors did not recognize that person on the roof, and they called the police. So the police came by and wanted to know who that person was up on the roof. And, of course, he had to explain that he was hired by my son. My son never answered the phone because he was asleep. But there were other people that were around, and they said that they've seen him before, And when the guy had a little dialogue with the police realized that he was legit. He had his tools. He had some paperwork, and then he just went on their merry way.
Oh, goodness.
So do you recommend that if somebody's going to work on your roof to notify the neighbors, or or would you say neighbors for the most part have discernment and they can kind of tell that the guy's not breaking in, that he does work on the roof?
I would hope that neighbors would have some discernment, but there's a difference between a renting neighbor and a landlord neighbor. Like somebody who actually lives in the house and they own it, because they understand maintenance differently than somebody who's renting. If you've
I
ever
see.
come across that. Because sometimes tenants just think that things magically happen and they magically get fixed, and they may not understand the nuances of repairing a home.
I got you. Okay. All right. So going back to the roof leak itself, you're saying sometimes you can DIY it.
Sometimes.
You do admit, though, that if someone is not experienced in dealing with roof repair, they should at least have a DIY coach, like maybe someone like yourself could say, call me, I'll go up on the roof and take a look at it.
Yes.
Yeah,